But we have this guy named Andy Byron who went to a Coldplay concert with his HR executive, and we don't have to talk about what happened at that concert.
Everyone knows.
Ship has sailed. No, thank you. No more of that. But what I'd like to talk about today is the business that he's in,
right?
And what I have this guy that I interact with. There, I'm not blurry anymore. I have this guy I interact with. His name is Barry Piatoff. He's a good friend of the Mac. I found him when I was a young professional. He was a PR recruiter, and he was one of the most thoughtful recruiters I had ever engaged with in my life. And he's just recently gone onto Substack. And he's like, I have no idea what Astronomer does. He's since retired, and he literally couldn't figure out what the hell this company is. So I wanted to bridge from the controversy to another thing that's a lot bigger than that controversy, which Michael will get into. But I want to start with data. And I realized very quickly, Jake, that you have a lot of experience with this, and you could probably give us a little bit of an explanation as to what is Astronomer.
I know. So before we got on the call, I was doing some deep dives into this, and one of the top stories was, what does Astronomer even do? And it was a very boilerplate thing. And then I started to think, man, what if this is just some freaky way to get them mentioned? But of course that would have to corroborate, you would have to have Chris Martin in on the con too.
Let's ruin someone's life in order to get you some PR. Well, it's gone up.
Well, but it's interesting. I think it's interesting that one of the stories top was, what do they even do? And so I spend a lot of time in this space. I'm content marketing manager at Ninja Cat, who is working in data management, similar to Astronomer. This is a unified data ops platform. So when you look at it, it says, you can get your data and you can, make it look your way. And then you go on the site and, it's impressive, but they're expressing that they're open source. Airflow is the key. And then it says here, I thought it was interesting. So I was like, okay, so Astronomer is this, but it's really built off of Airflow, Snowflake, and Databricks. So it sort of collects the data through these places, manipulates it, and gives it to people in a centralized way. There's many companies.
It's manipulating data?
Normalizing, not manipulating, but sort of like if you have codes and sort of, so these are things that if you sell a lot of Pepsi products, the companies who work with this, huge. Fast moving consumer goods. But they have a bunch of sales data that 7-Eleven could look like the store. It could look like the date. It could look like a time. It could look like, so you have to normalize that. So when I say manipulate.
Yeah, I experienced this too when I was at MasterCard, where you would have cardholder data, you would have consumer data, you would have data from banks, you would have data from merchants. And then in order to get it to all be able to, you can play with it, you need to normalize it. So I respect that.
Right. So it's taxonomy and sort of those things. So, but that ends up being on the organization side, the customer side. These people are just flying data. So Snowflake, huge. So I look into that. What does it do? It kind of says it does the same thing as Astronomer. We give you analytics and you can get your data. And I was like, all right, Databricks. Well, we give you analytics and and Databricks, what is it built off of? Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, SAP. So I was like, there's just all these different people that are playing all these different roles and then just kind of like changing costumes when the real skill or benefit for any of these things comes from an organization that understands their own data, workflows, processes, and then they can benefit from all of this. But a lot of organizations don't. So there's trillions of dollars here. So go to the next slide. So this is one of the things. I'm privy to some of these some of the information, talking with a lot of people, data scientists, people working in data management, and this is stated that only 3% of companies' data meets basic quality standards. Data quality? Oh, it's bad. And everybody's talking about it. So then these are all the results. And then you click through to all of these sites. So this was, that first one was from the Harvard Business Review. So then I was like, who wrote this? Thomas Redman wrote this, and he runs a data quality thing. And here's a picture of what his latest video is him printing out his old articles and reading them on YouTube. Now, I'm not trying to dog on his style. Everyone has different ways to communicate. But I was like, what? On the other side, okay, now go to another example. I just want to show you. Here's another example. You click through, data quality is a bad thing. Data leer. I'm not sure what that is. And then look at the green button. Subscribe to the guest blogs blog. What? And then that's based on research that comes from this company, WinPure, who says data quality is a challenge. And at the end, they say WinPure addresses these challenges. So I'm like, well, of course. So on the other side, oh, hi, David.
Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
We're mid rant and we're talking about data quality.
Yes,
so
I gathered that.
Okay, here we go.
David didn't get the memo on the black shirt.
Oh, we're all wearing.
No, sorry.
We're gonna send those out.
Here.
Yeah. We're gonna send those out.
I'll include it in the memo next time.
But anyway, I thought it was very interesting that, you know, on one side, you have all of these $1 trillion, $1 billion, $1 million companies playing with things, changing little costumes. I'll play middleware. You go fetch the data, I'll catch it, and you go get the data and I'll go get it. And you're just not really worried about the quality, because if you talk to people who are really smart, the data quality doesn't slow people down. If you know a database and you know what you're looking for, you can find sense inside of the garbage. But once you start automating that thing and sending it through the pipelines, that's when it gets, and you have no taxonomy. You don't have a data dictionary. You know, there's a lot of due diligence that happens on the personal side that makes this stuff not that big of a problem. But I wonder,
it's a big problem. We talked about it earlier.
The energy isn't here to fix it because there's so much money to be made in ignoring it.
Well, let me just state this. So we talked a little bit before the call, and we talked about how these large language models, they bring in data from the internet. They don't really check who the author was, how credible that author was. It's all based on search activity and stuff like that. And increasingly what happens is there's all these AI outputs that come from data. So now we're getting a lot further from the actual author, right? So how does that affect the data that we use?
I mean, open it up. I mean, the data trail chain of record. Someone says, oh, the Bitcoin solves this, or the ledger solves this, or, you know, and it used to just be a book. You look in one book and you say, this is the book. Here it is. And now books are sort of movable and available, like Wikipedia. You know, I can change some stuff in Wikipedia. You know, they can change some stuff in this data. So why wouldn't you? You know, a lot of the bad data comes from salespeople just boofing things, just saying, I'm just going to make it look a little bit better. Some marketers are like, I'm just going to make it a little bit better. And over time, you have, you know, 10,000 people just and that'll catch you. But I think we're all maybe coming to it innocently. I think it's just sort of like, I'm going to round it up here. Yeah. You know, and after a while.
And then the cumulative effect leads us to Michael and our guest up for the day, who wrote a article that was, without knowing it, highly timely based on this introduction.
So when you look at it, it says, you know, you can get your data and you can, you know, make it look your way. And then you go on the site and, you know, it's impressive, but they're expressing that they're open source. Airflow is the key. And then it says here, I thought it was interesting. So I was like, okay, so Astronomer is this, but it's really built off of Airflow, Snowflake, and Databricks. So it sort of collects the data through these places, manipulates it, and gives it to people in a centralized way. There's many companies.
It's manipulating
normalizing, not manipulating.